This is the teacher notes for week 2 on campus stuff. So, bit of a cram session again. Spend the time on the mental starters. This is going to be an hour. Then the reasoning and problem solving, probably give them about an hour and a half. And obviously you've got a break in there as well. Okay, so starting off, this session is practical. Make sure you've got whiteboards, you've got whiteboard pens. This session, you want to encourage students to try and build their confidence with maths. It's about them having a go, just reinforcing for them. I've said in the lecture, for a lot of them, they probably haven't done maths since their GCSEs, and I know a lot of them are really scared about doing maths and showing others that they can't do maths. So the first part is just about talking to them about and unpacking their experience with maths. It won't be all good, it won't be all bad, but it's just about almost building their confidence in the first sort of 10-15 minutes. So start off the session. I start off with a mental starter. This is what I'd said I would do with my old class. This is taken from how I used to start my days in primary school. So put this on the board. So when they come in, give them a whiteboard and then encourage them to get on with this task. So how many mathematical words they can think of beginning with M. You then show it and then talk to them about, as I talked about in the lecture, it's not just about the traditional forms of maths and numeracy. It opens up time, so months, March, milliseconds, much, multiples, mathematics, and talk to them as well as that it's almost like math through stealth, in that they're going to be doing maths, and in the tests it's maths, but they're also being tested on literacy as well to an extent. So it's really important that in numeracy sessions there is that mixture of words as well as traditional numbers as well. So this is a nice activity to get them started, to get them warmed up, to get them thinking about maths, and they tend to like this because it hasn't got numbers. Tell them that obviously we are going to be using numbers. They can use calculators if they want. This is not to trip them up. It's trying to build their confidence in this session. So we talk to them about their experience of maths, get the tissues ready. There's usually a crier, so it's usually fine. But actually, it's needed, I think, because a lot of them are really apprehensive about starting to teach maths. You talked about their negative experiences, links to some of the research of Joe Bowler. And then we talk about, in this session, it's going to be a break from traditional teaching. It's going to be about trying to make maths fun. And on that, we get them up and we do some maths games. So this session is all about maths games. Underneath here, I've written down exactly what you need to do. So I usually stick on the Wimbledon theme tune. I don't know if I've got it down there. Oh, there you go. I've put them down there for you. So I've got the Wimbledon theme tune. And they're all going. They're all loving it. Get them to act out to be as funny as they can. Obviously, they need to be out the front, so 2 meters apart. Get the masks on. And get them to act out, them being tennis stars. They can add a grunt in there if they like. And they're starting off, and they've got to serve the ball to each other, and they got to return it. So it would be the 2 times table, so 2, 4, 6, 8, and then get them to do that. But with each time, 2, 4, 6, and kids love it. Adults don't love it so much, but again, get them all involved. Make sure that they're all getting involved with this. It's really important. Then we have the shoot the sheriff, and then again, if it wasn't for COVID times, we get them to stand back to back. They've got to be 2 meters apart. Again, get that Wild West music going. If we can get any cowboy hats, that would be great. In my class, I used to get the cowboy hats on, and they used to absolutely love this. You got the so get YouTube playing. Get them standing back to back, 2 meters apart, and then they have to. So you call out a sum. So where it's say 2 times 2. And then they've got to turn round, shoot, and then the person that shoots first can then say the answer. They need to do then a dramatic death, so they die, and then the person that lost will go back to their seat, and then there's a new challenger. Kids love it, maybe not so much the adults, but again, this should be fun. This is the first activity, it should be quite fun. All right. We talk to them about maths starters, how they should be engaging, get their brains firing, that it's a break from traditional maths in that we're trying to make maths fun, stimulating, and it's just about bringing, as Joe Bowler says, different parts of the brain to the boil, so they're constantly doing maths, but in a fun way, and they're not even thinking about doing maths. Okay, and then these are examples that we use. So if you play that video, Wayne Rooney will read out a question. So we talk about using real life problems and real life issues that they might be interested in. So I don't know if you remember in the paper, this is Wayne Rooney, his payslip was found, he threw it out, and the Daily Mail obviously reported it. So get them to tell you, discussing their partners, what is this number first? How much did he get paid? And then he did actually get a bonus for £234 and 10p. So you need to add that to this. And then a lot of them will struggle with this, and that's fine, but encourage them to use place value. So get them to draw on their whiteboards their place value grids. A lot of them will have a trip down memory lane to do this. Really important that they do the place value, because the rest of the sums we're going to be using, they're going to need to use place value. Again, then we talk about the wonderful and lovely Jennifer Lawrence, and there she is. This is the fee she got paid for just turning up to sign the Hunger Games, the film, if you remember. This is what she got paid to turn up to the meeting. So again, get them to work out with the place value, how much is that? And then they can have a discussion around that. And then talk to them as well and say, maths classroom shouldn't just be quiet. It should be a discussion, melting pot of discussing numbers, figures, and this is a nice activity to do that. Okay. Eyes down, get the place value grids going. So what you'd have here is get them to do a 3x3 grid. One of them will be the bingo caller, and one of them, and the rest of them then will draw in numbers, multiples of. So you could start with the 2 times table, then you could go on to 3s, you could go on to 9s, however evil the place value bingo caller wants to be. But really important they do 3x3, and again, get them to reflect after each of these activities to think, how would this work? This is a short, sharp activity that maybe will fill a transition in between lessons, or if there's ever a down period where they need to fill, these are always really good games to do. The next one then, you can show them some online games, and we can be quite critical about these online games in that, when we go out to schools, we see a lot of teachers just saying, go on online games. It's not always the answer, and how do we actually know they're actually learning anything? So it's good for them to have a look at this, explore these in their own time. So give them about 5 minutes to have a look at some of these games. Then play that Granny Pre. So you click on there. You can customize your granny however you want. Kids absolutely love it. And again, it just shows them another fun way of exploring times tables. But you can be quite critical of it as well, because I have seen a lot of teachers do this with the class, and you might have 1 or 2 joining in, but the rest of them tend to switch off. So again, we can use these activities to be critical. All right, message from Usain Bolt, and then Usain Bolt is asking them to, I'm writing something down, asking them to put these in the put the fastest to slowest. And obviously then you'll explore their misconceptions, talk to them about, what children will do that's potentially different. Really important that we explore the misconceptions as well. The next one then is negative numbers. And again, there'll be a lot of negative misconceptions. Encourage them to use their whiteboards for number lines. Some of them will struggle with this. And then if they don't, talk to them about, what potentially will children do? We then talk to them about the evil word problem, because word problems are pretty evil. The people that come up with them are pretty evil in WJEC. They have, they're taught maths. I always remember a kid in my class, Mitchell, who said, "Sir, it's so unfair. We get taught maths, then in our tests we have English in our maths tests." And it is true. There's always a red herring, so look through this, explore what actually are the numbers we need to use, because there are some numbers there we don't need to use. So we talk to them about how to construct a word problem, and then how you can actually decompose a word problem and actually select the things. Okay, loop cards. These will be printed out, and you need to collect these from reception along with the whiteboards, and then you hand them out, and then the person will have the start card, and then there'll be an end card, and you need to work out, for example, it'll say 2 times 2 on one card, and then someone else will have the answer, which is 4, and then they'll have the next question. So it should loop together. So really important. And fun. They love that. And then they could even record their times, and we'll see of the groups which is the fastest. Countdown. There's some countdown games there. And then that final one, it's about trying to encourage maths dialogue. Not too worried about the answers here, but get them to discuss in small groups to estimate and put these in size order. So it does get quite philosophical, this question, because it's got days since the 1st of January the 1st, and obviously we talk about, when were calendars actually invented. We talk about the population of the UK. And again, this is meant to encourage maths dialogue, as Joe Bowler talks about. It's really important that we don't have silent classrooms. So again, in here, should stimulate quite a bit of talking. I have gone through this quite a lot in the lecture, but if they did want to talk about what is the difference between numeracy and maths, some of the groups might not be aware of, in Wales, what are the different assessments. Some of them might. So you don't need to spend much on this. There's a little bit there on maths settings, maths by stealth, but a lot of this, don't worry too much. I want you to move on to the next part. So once they've done those practical examples, we go on to then reasoning and problem solving. Now we are going to be restricted by the weather. So I'll send an email out the week before. I'll have to do a site check. I've done the risk assessment. If there's high winds, we can't go out, so we're going to have to stay indoors. So the way we're going to have to play it, if we are indoors, obviously spend more time on the reasoning stuff. If we are going outdoors, if you whiz through the reasoning stuff and spend more time in the outdoors would be good. So it all depends on the weather. You know what weather in Wales is like. Okay, so in the session, we're going to be exploring reasoning. Now, I have done a lecture on this. Don't need to spend too long on it. But there are quite a lot of students who aren't from Wales. So they probably haven't done explicit reasoning before. So this would be a good opportunity for them to do it. So there are practical questions. Again, get their whiteboards out, get their pens out, and they can do these. There's always the answer. We talk about the answer. We talk about problem solving. Talk about what reasoning is. Talk about different types of problems that exist and why it's important to share this with children so they know what potentially could have in a test. Another question there, and there's the answer. Talk again about Wales and the assessment if you didn't do it in the last session. There's some examples there of reasoning. We talk about the rucksack method. So really important in national tests. So when we had, we first had the national tests, our learners, we spent a lot of time with the pupils. Rather than just rushing through the questions, we implemented, and the whole of Caerphilly did this, the rucksack method. So it wasn't just they rushed through the test. They actually, for each question, they used rucksacks. They read, understood what was being asked. They choose the right operation, they solve the problem, so they show their workings, then they put the answer, and then they check, which is really important. So it was about embedding this process to tackle word problems. So again, it's sharing that with the students, and then they have a go at using this with an actual reasoning problem, which is here. So this was this is taken from a national test, so they can have a go at this. And a lot of them will struggle with this. They will find, because there isn't a definite answer, they will struggle. So there's the answer key here. The key thing is for them is they need to show their working. So they have to try and estimate. They're not going to get it to the exact number because they're estimating, but just talking through the process and talking about rucksack is really important. Again, this is an example of one of the reasoning questions. It's quite abstract. A lot of children wouldn't know this. And then we talk to the students then about, well, how could we embed reasoning across the curriculum? Because, how can you prepare children for these sort of questions? Okay, and if you have time, if it is raining, if it is really high winds, we're probably going to be staying inside, so you could spend a bit more time on these. Okay. Then we'll talk to them a little bit about reasoning across the curriculum. So there's some examples here of history, using numbers within history. And then you could talk to them about where else reasoning could be developed, obviously in things like PE, science, health and well-being. Talk to them about learner-led problems, so children coming up with their own problems. Great place to start is obviously always timetables, so you give them a timetable and then they come up with the questions. They could do that themselves. Brilliant example is the escape room. Now, if we can go outdoors, it would be much better to do the escape room in the outdoors. If we can't, if it is raining, then we'll do the escape room indoors, and we'll encourage them to use things like QR codes. We'll encourage them to use digital resources to make their escape room. So then a little bit there about what an escape room is, how can it be used. So there's a task, they have to develop an escape room, and then another group, they're going to share each other's and they're going to have a go at each other's. Okay, and there's some guidance there. There's some really helpful resources. They're going to need to do a lot of planning on this. So, if it's nice, do the escape room outdoors and then have a break. And then you can get on with the numeracy outdoors. Again, you're not going to have a whiteboard outside, so go through all this before you go outside. I'm going to bring an iPad with me just to remind me of this. But we're going to talk to them about doing maths outside. So the first thing we're going to do is outdoor master chef. So they're going to create a masterpiece in the kitchen. They're going to find natural resources and they're going to sell their recipe to the rest of the group. Only give them a quick 5 minutes to do this. You should all have clay. You can use mud for this as well. They're going to create symmetrical mud masks on trees, or they're going to create drawings of symmetry. So talk to them about symmetry. It could be these sort of masks here, or some of them have done really, really good leaf diagrams, which again, you can do that if you like. Then finally, you've got the tower challenge. So using natural resources, which group can make the highest tower using twigs. There's the survival numeracy. So if you play that video to them, tell them that they've just been in a plane crash and they have to select one of these. Then they have to select these items. So they have to choose 4 items. So again, through reasoning, this is reasoning, they have to provide reason to why they are selecting these, and they need to work as a group to why they would do this. Okay. And then finally, the last thing they're going to do is, for Lansana Primary, they're going to be creating outdoor maths within mud medicine. Sorry, my brain's gone. I've been teaching all day. It is marvelous mud medicine. So they're going to be developing resources. The last thing they'll do is they will then discuss and have a go at creating some activities for the Lansana project. And that is it. Let me just double check. There's the risk assessment there if you need it. Really, really important. you'll know your groups beforehand. If you do have any wheelchair users, really important to let Gemma know, and then we can plan out the log circles, who's going to be using what. Okay, there you go.